finally getting round to do the Christmas teddy bear watercolour, and I'm hoping that I am set up slightly better this time so that everything is in sight, the lighting is better, the sound is better, I'm hoping, because I've got my microphone in, and hopefully overall it will be better than the mushroom tutorial, which was ridiculously bad, so I do apologise for that. But I'm all set up here, I've got my sketch down, and I don't know if you can see, I'm hoping you can, it's quite light, but I've added a couple of fir tree branches in, just into this corner, so he looks like he's kind of, you know, a gift waiting under the tree. I just thought that was a nice little something to add there in the corner. Now, I've got my paints set up here. These are Winsor & Newton Cotman. I've got my ceramic palette. I have got some masking fluid. I've got my water jars. I've got a kneadable eraser, some kitchen towel, and just off of camera are all my brushes, but I will tell you. I've also got some little rubber tools. That's for the masking fluid, so I will talk you through all that. I wanted to do it from start to finish rather than bring you in once I'd masked it all, etc, etc. Now, I do apologise about my hand. I have been wearing a splint because I've had really bad carpal tunnel, and I discovered that it squeaks really badly, so I've had to take it off. But it's left me with what looks like scars all up my arm. But yeah, that's a whole nother story. I also have a snoring puggle in the background, and I'm hoping I'll be able to take her snores out in editing, but I might not, so unfortunately we might hear some snoring in the background. I hope not, because I know how annoying that can be. So yeah, we are all set up and ready to go. And the first thing I'm going to do is mask off the areas, because I want to put a nice neutral background on this so that Teddy kind of stands out. I don't want this to be too quick of a tutorial, because I'm not sure how many holiday themed tutorials I'm going to be able to fit in now, so this might be the only one. So yeah, I want it to be quite in depth so that you can hopefully follow along, and I will provide the line art, and I will also put links down to the paints I'm using and everything else in the description below. So with all that being said, I will start by masking off. Now, I'm hoping the palette and everything is in view of the camera. I am in the house again, so I'm filming on my phone rather than the overhead camera. It is still overhead, but a big camera. So I'm going to start. We obviously need to mask off the tree branches, and I also just want to mask around the outline of the bear and the bow. The rest of it is fine. It's just really the outline, because I want to be able to get the background on pretty quick. So I'm just going to mask that off. Now, I'm going to use these. These are like, I think these are silicone tipped, these tools. I'm hoping you can see that. These have been, as you can see, these have been well used over the years for all sorts, Fimo clay and everything. But they are so handy, they last so long as well. And this is a little sort of chisel pointed one, and this is a little round one. And I'm going to use those to put the masking fluid on. No, no one, okay. Right, so I'm using, just put the lid on so I don't fall out. I'm using this masking fluid. This is a Dale Brownie one. I've actually added a little drop of water to mine because it was very, very thick. And obviously I don't want it too thick because we want to be able to get the detail of the branches in. So I'm just going to pour some of this into the lid. And using the chisel tool, I'm just going to mask off the tree branches. So because I've added a little bit of water to this, it's a little bit finer, and it will of course dry quicker as well. I'm not going to be too careful to follow the drawing. I mean, I just want the branch roughly masked off. You put in as many branches as you want on here. Make it as thick and bushy as you like. Try not to go over too many times because you'll start lifting off the masking fluid you've already put on and you'll end up with blobs. So I think I prefer mine a little bit thicker like that. Just do this bottom one. I mean, you could add more branches in if you wanted to. So the dog has stopped snoring and I can hear the cat creeping about. So we'll probably hear the cat meowing for a dinner in a minute. It is actually quite late here. I like to paint at night because it's nice and quiet. She says. Oops, that went a bit thick there, but not to worry. Push some of that off onto the masking tape. I think. Yep, here comes the cat. That's probably okay there. It's probably as much as I want to do. So that's good for the tree. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to go around the edge of the stars. There's the cat. Honestly. She's going to have to wait for a second because I don't want to leave this. Don't worry, I will feed her in a second. So just around the edge of the bits that we don't want any background on. So I'm just going to put a little bit across there, and I'm going to put a little bit across there because there is a little patch of the background underneath that star there. And also underneath this one just here, so I want the background down there as well. So that should be fine. Got a little build up, just be careful you don't get a little build up of the masking fluid on there. So just the corner of the star there. And then along here. Oops, that wasn't very straight, was it? It doesn't matter too much, you can touch it up afterwards with the paint, but try and get it straight, unlike me. And up Teddy. Around his ear. This just means we won't have to fiddle with the background too much. We can get it on in one go pretty much. Nice and quick. There's going to be a few different techniques that I have found helpful. You might have seen the Mushroom and the Raven watercolour that I did, and I'm going to carry some of those techniques used for the details there into this one. So hopefully I'll be able to give you some little tips as we go. I'm by no means a watercolour expert. It's taken me quite a while, actually a long while, to even attempt watercolours, because it just wasn't making sense to me. Because I am a pencil artist and I work in acrylics, you know, you can put dark to light. Pencils you can layer dark to light, and the whole light to dark concept, it just kept throwing me. I also like, not realism, but I like things to look realistic, or as realistic as a painting can be. And I couldn't get the results. I wasn't satisfied with what was happening with the paint, and so I went against all the rules and did my own thing, and it worked. And I can't tell you how happy I was to be able to do it. So I'm going to show you some of that here, hopefully. Now I think that is everything masked off. Just clean the end of that. So now we need to let this dry. Now, do not be tempted to dry this with a hairdryer. It's not going to be good. It will tear the paper, and the paint might seep underneath the masking fluid. So don't do that. That's a bad idea. It won't take long for this to dry. At all. So we're just going to leave that to dry, and we will come back once it's all dry, and we'll get the background put on, which is just going to be a kind of a neutral grey, a cool grey. I might do a little bit warmer in the corners, I'm not too sure, but it's just a neutral background we're looking for, because we want the bear to be the star of the show, and obviously our little tree branches, which is going to be, they're going to be quite fun to do. This is quite intricate, and that's the detail that I like. And I'm going to show you how to do some fur detail and his little face, and yeah, lovely. He's sitting on a little blanket on the floor. Not quite sure what colour I'm going to do that yet. We're just going to go with a flow, I think. So yeah, we'll start on the background, get that in. Once the masking fluid is off, you can of course then use a hairdryer to dry your layers of paint. I'm always going to do whatever's quickest. This was another reason I didn't touch watercolour, because I am not patient. I like instant results. So hairdryers are good. So we'll come back when the masking fluid is all nice and dry, and we'll get the background on. Okay, we are back. I'm still a little bit tacky on the masking fluid, so I thought while I'm waiting for that to dry, just tell you a little bit more about the paper I'm using. I am using this. This is 100% cotton, mould made, 100% cotton cold pressed paper, and it's it has got texture, but it's a fine texture, very fine texture. But you don't want a hot press. You want cotton paper. It will make the world of difference. That was something else I was doing wrong. I was buying cheap paper. I used hot press. Didn't get on with that. Can be very good for colour pencil though. But yeah, cold press. I gave in and bought the 100% cotton, because everybody that I was watching was saying it was going to make a difference to your painting, and they were absolutely right. So if you've tried watercolour and not got on with it, please try 100% cotton. This pad, I got this from Amazon. I'll pop all the links below. And it was not very expensive. I only bought a little one. This is 10 by 7 inches. Because I wanted to give this one a try. If you see one that you think is going to be okay, just buy a small one and give it a try. I promise it will help so much. I love this one. I love this one. I've also got a Bockingford block. When I use that next time, I'll show you that one. Also cold press, also cotton. But yeah, this one is great. This is Daler Rowney as well, so it's brilliant. It's £140, which is 300 GSM. Obviously acid free, made in the UK. Love it, absolutely love it. So I'll pop the link to that down below. That is going to make all the difference. The brushes that I'm going to use today, I'm going to be using this is a 16. This is a Transon synthetic brush. These are great. I love these for washes. These are really good, and you can get a nice lot of water in these. So yeah, I'm going to be using that. I've got a smaller one, which is a size 12, to actually do the background. What else have I got in here? I have got a Princeton number 6. Now you don't need to have all these brushes, you know, just make do. If you've got watercolour brushes, make do with what you've got. I'm just showing you what I'm using. I love the number 6. Is so handy, because you know, you can do tiny little details. It'll go into a lovely point. See, it'll go into a lovely point, so you can get really small details. And you can also use the belly of the brush to get quite large areas done as well. So we've got that one. This is a graduate, Daler Rowney graduate brush. I'm not sure if I'm going to be using that, but I've got that one just in case. I've also got this one, which is a number 10. This one's a rigger, this one's a liner. So I probably am not going to use those, and I'll tell you why. Because I have got this one, which is also a Princeton. There we go. I've had this one for a while, and I hope you can see it is usually used for fur. It's got this, let me just show you. Once you've got it wet, see, it goes like a little comb on the end, and it's great for fur. I use it in pet portraits, obviously. Also great for fir branches if you use it sideways rather than this way. It's great for that. I have got a teeny tiny Daler Rowney graduate. This is a 50 tiny. This is obviously for the details on the bow of our bear. So you might have those. You might just have, you know, your own selection. That's fine. You don't need to go and get any special brushes, honestly. These are just the ones that I get on with more. I've got a ceramic palette. I would recommend a ceramic palette, and you know, it's because the plastic palettes that you buy, and I've got many of them, with watercolour, you find that when you put the paint in, it beads, and so you can't really, when you're mixing your colours, you can't really get a good idea of the colours that you're mixing. It's really frustrating. These won't do that. The paint will spread evenly and you'll be able to get a really good visual on the colour that you've mixed. So I love this. This is a medium one. It was pretty inexpensive. Again, I'll leave the link below for that, for where I've got that from. My water jugs, they are just like mason type jars, and they hold quite, you know, a good amount of water, and they're quite pretty to look at. So yeah, really inexpensive. So I don't recommend you buy a special pot. These are perfect, absolutely perfect. I'm going to be using a kneadable eraser to lighten up some of my line work once we've got this background on. So you don't need a kneadable eraser, you can use an ordinary eraser, that's absolutely fine. And I think I said the paints, didn't I? Yeah, Winsor & Newton Cotman paints. These are student grade, absolutely fine. I mean, use what you've got. Now I think you have to be careful because, see, I've just lifted some off there. I think pretty much we are dry there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up some colour. Now I do just want a neutral background on this. I don't want anything fancy. I might put some signature circles in it afterwards, not too sure, but I think I'm going to go for Payne's Grey, a really diluted Payne's Grey. So I'm going to move my masking fluid out of the way, and I'm going to bring my water jars over here, and I am just going to, I've pre-wet my my paints. I'm just going to pick up some Payne's Grey, and I'm going to make a really, really diluted wash for the background. You have to remember it's going to dry a lot lighter. I didn't want to leave it white, I wanted to put something in the background, so we're going to go with this. A bit more of that in because I want to make sure I've got enough to cover this background. You want it quite watery consistency, so tea. I think that will be fine. And I am just going to dampen the background down. So taking my large brush, get that loaded with water, and I am just going to dampen anywhere that I want this lovely grey to be. So I'm not going to soak it too much, I just want to get it in between the masking fluid there, down, right down here. All around the bear. Just so there's a nice sheen on the paper, a nice even sheen on there. Okay, just go over those again because I really do want to make sure that goes over there. And not forgetting this little area under the stars there. So that should do. We don't want puddles, we just want a nice even sheen. And now I'm going to take my slightly smaller brush, I'm going to wet it. And I'm going to come into this lovely grey. I'm going to try and do this fairly quickly, and I'm just going to wash it over the area that we've just wet. So really quickly, get that over there. Just a nice even wash. Make sure I go right up to the edges. I've put a nice thin edge on this paper with the masking tape today. I wanted a nice narrow edge. So that, just make sure you've got as close in as you can to all your stars, and then not forgetting this little space down here. And that is perfect. We're just going to leave this to dry now. And it will dry lighter. I'm going to leave this to dry, and once that's dry we can get rid of the masking fluid and we can get on with the rest of it. Going to need a little bit of patience because we don't want to put the hairdryer on the masking fluid. Once the masking fluid's gone, we can hairdry as much as we like, which is what I like. So a little bit more patience needed just for the background, and then we can get on with it. As if by magic, we are back, and as you can see, it's dried a lot lighter. It's just right. It's just the right neutral grey that I was looking for. And now we can take off our masking fluid. Now, before we do this, there is a right and wrong way to do this. So there is. Just make sure you've got no grease on your finger. And we are just going to roll inwards towards the picture, if that makes sense. So just going to roll. It might take you a minute to get going. Don't be tempted to do that and pull it. I know it's fun, but don't do it because you risk tearing the paper if you do that. So just be patient. It won't take very long to get the masking fluid off, and just roll it. Don't try and rush this part, just roll it gently. The last thing we want to do is tear the paper. I might speed this bit up because I'm sure you don't want to watch me doing this. And there we go. It'll only take you a few minutes. Just go around after you've got the main lot off and just give it a little rub over and make sure you've got all of that masking fluid off, because the last thing we want now is for the paint to resist. Now I'm just going to go and wash my hands because, believe it or not, I am allergic to latex, and I don't believe they do make a latex-free masking fluid. If anybody knows of one, let me know, because I've got a latex allergy. So I am just going to go and wash my hands quickly and I'll be back. Okay, so there we go. There's our lovely picture ready to go now. Got the background in, we've got everything masked off, and everything is ready for some colour. So we're going to start, I think, as much as I want to do Mr. Bear, we're going to start on the tree branches. I want to show you a couple of different ways to do it. Now we're going to start with light greens, and we're going to work our way up to some deeper greens to give these some depth, you know, give them a little bit of colour. So I'm going to mix up some sap green, which is a lovely, it's almost like a limey green, and to that I'm going to add a tiny touch of alizarin crimson, and that will just knock it back so it's not so bright, and give it a more natural kind of colour. So that's looking good. I am going to take my brush that I showed you earlier. It's called a filbert grainer. I mean, I call it a fur brush because that's all I've ever used it for really, but it is particularly good for this. But I'm going to use it sideways, like this. Okay, so I'm just going to wet it. I'll pick up some of that colour, and I'm just going to go over the whole of the fir branch. So I'm going to go down the middle, a bit more, go down the middle, like so. Now don't be too worried if you go over the background, it really doesn't matter. Just wanted this to be masked off because we want some of this light green. It's quite important to get the light green. So I'm just using this sideways, and I am just going over those, I was going to say fronds, but they're not, are they? Needles. Needles, of course they are. Pine needles, they're meant to be, aren't they? And just roughly going over all of those that we masked off, not being too precious about it. I just want to cover most of the white area. Like so. It doesn't matter if there's a little bit of white showing. Honestly, don't fret about it. It'll add to the effect if anything. Okay, so that's that one. Now I'm going to show you with my liner brush on the other one. So same thing, we're going to go down the middle, and then same thing, we're just going to fill in those needles with the lovely sap green mixture. And you can probably see it's taking longer to do it this way than that one did. So, I mean, whichever way you want to do it. An ordinary filbert brush would work just as well, turned on its side. You could probably even use a flat brush, get the same effect. So that's our sap green. Apologies if you can hear my cat. She is asking my daughter, please let me in. So there we go. That's our lightest green on. And now you can get the hairdryer out, guys, if you want. I'm sure you will be pleased to hear that. I will just get mine plugged in. Just going to give this a quick dry so we can get the next layer on. There we go, that didn't take very long at all. That should be fine. I'm going to go back to my comb now because I much prefer this one. So next green, we're going to pick up some more of that lovely sap green. And we're going to add a touch of the alizarin crimson and a touch of viridian. We don't want too much of this. I think I'll probably just put too much of that on there. There we go. That's going to give us a nice darker tone with that green. So I'm going to take my fur brush again, and we're just going to repeat the process. We are going to make sure we leave some of this lovely light green showing. So I'm going to go down the middle again, right to the end, and then this time just not everywhere. So in between, kind of give it a little bit of variation in colour. Same one on here, down the middle. So leave some of that lighter green showing. I mean, nothing's perfect in nature, so just remember that. We don't have to be perfect with it. Okay, I'm going to give that a dry. Okay, that's nice and dry. So we are now just going to add some more Hooker's green into the mix. Nice and dark. And then a tiny touch of the red. So we've got a nice deep green. So this time we're going to go down the centre on both. Right to the end there. And we're going to do the same thing, but this time we are going to bring them more inwards. So instead of going out that way, we're going to bring them more and not as long. And that will just give us a little bit of depth in there. Same thing on this one. And that is our branches, more or less, done. So by doing that, it's just given the effect of the central part of the branches being thicker and darker. Okay, so that's our branches done. We can move on, and I know you're dying to move on to our bear. Now, before we do anything, I am going to lighten up some of this pencil. I'm just using a putty eraser, kneadable eraser, and I'm just going to lighten some of the darker areas, lifting some of the graphite up because we don't want it too dark. So on his feet, and I know you're probably thinking we've got the stars and the blanket to do, but I want to give the bear some texture, and to do that we're going to put, it's not really an underpainting, it's just detail that's going to be knocked back with the next layer. So I just want to lighten this up so we can get some of that detail on and drying before we move on to the stars and the blanket. So just lighten him up as much as you can. Now that is a little bit of his arm, I think, showing through there. Looking at the picture now, it's a bit of the scarf through there, so I'm not worried about that too much. Just his little face and his arms really, and his little feet. So that's a bit better. Now, in order to give him some texture, we're going to go in quite dark with some details. Now, once we put the next few layers on, it will knock it back. So don't be too alarmed. Don't worry too much. Now for this, I'm going to use some raw umber. Now, mixing this up, I want it quite thin because I want it to flow for the adding these details, but I don't want it too light. You know, we want it to notice. So I'm going to come in with my teeny tiny brush. This is a 50 spotter brush, and you can see why it's called a spotter brush, because it really is teeny tiny. And what we're going to do is, using that raw umber mix, just going to check it's dark enough. Actually, it might be too light still. Let's add a tiny touch of lamp black in there, just to deepen it a little bit. That's better. Yeah, that's better. So taking the dark mix, we are going to come up to his ear. I think we'll begin on his ear. And in order to give him a little bit of texture, all we're going to do is put some little marks in the direction of his fur. So he is quite a fluffy bear. I think he's meant to be a stiff bear. So I'm just adding in the direction that his fur is going. Some little tiny texture marks on the outer edge, the outer, not the inside, you know, the outer area. And that's it. That's all. You don't want to do any more than that. You want some of the white still showing through. Our light is coming from this side, I believe, kind of, yeah, left and downwards. We're going to put some more of this texture on this outer ear. This ear is kind of in a slightly squashed downwards position, so the inner ear is a little bit smaller, the darker area. So just random little lines in the direction of his fur. And when we come to put his last final layer on, we will give him some little tiny wispy outer fur, as it were. Now, we don't want too much on his face. We want it more around his eye area, so kind of around here. Like that, and across his kind of top of his nose area and up that little line there, and again up this eye area. Like so. I know he looks very odd at the moment, but I promise he will look better. We're going to go down the side of his muzzle here, because the light's coming, so this is going to be a little bit in shadow here anyway, so just a few texture marks there. And then on the top of his head, we just want a few, not too many, just a few in the direction that his fur would be going, and down the side of his face in this kind of direction. Like that. Around his nose. Not on his nose, just around his nose there. And these are all details that we're going to put back again on the last layer. It will make sense. And around his lower nose. so, and then just around where his little mouth is going to go, like that. And now we're going to repeat the process in various parts of his body here. Now there's two little lines that you can't really see now because I've lightened them, but on the line drawing you will see them, and we are just going to add some texture down there, like that, and then a little bit towards the edge there, and the other arm is going to be very much in shadow, so we are going to add this texture down this side here, just little tiny marks, that's all you need. And when we do the next layer you'll probably think, well, what was the point in that? All will become clear. So now we are going to, let's see, I'm going to put a couple of little marks down there and down this end, like that, a couple down there, and on his belly we want to put some here, and the beauty of this is we don't need to put them all over, because we're going to do that in the final kind of layers. Like so. Just look very odd, doesn't he? Around his feet we are going to put some, this way the fur is kind of splayed out as it were, so here and some down here, there's a few back here, and on his other foot in this kind of area. Like so. And on his upper belly we're going to put a few at the top there, and then just a few random ones in this sort of area here. But this is all in shadow along here because that's his arm, so there, it kind of looks like he's been dragged through the dirt, doesn't he? Right, I'm going to rinse my brush out. I'm going to leave that for a minute. Now, these stars are, it looks almost like they are painted wood. And it almost looks like it's a goldy kind of colour on the picture. So, what we're going to do, this colour we've just used is perfect. We're going to put that down. I'm going to add a little bit of water to it, and we're going to give this these stars a wash over, avoiding the edges. So just on the main face of the stars, but we're going to start with this one. No, actually we won't. We'll start with the back one because the back one is slightly darker, so we'll use the mix we've got to do this this back one, and then we'll lighten it up a little bit to do the front one. So just wet my brush down, and using this darker mix, we're just going to put a layer, wet on dry, down the face of this star. Really hope my head's not in the camera. Like so. Okay, so there's one done. Now I'm going to add some more water, so we've got a slightly lighter colour. And we don't want to run them into each other, so just be careful. You can dry that last layer with a hairdryer if you're not confident that it won't go in. So a nice light wash of that on this star. And the ends of this one are kind of buried in the blanket there, so and don't forget we're going to add all the details at the end. Now using this lighter wash that we've just made, we're going to run down the edge of this star here, and what I want you to do is leave a tiny white line between the edge and the face of the star. So just leave a little tiny negative space there. And I missed the tip of the star behind, so we'll just put that in now. And same thing here. Run down, but just leave a tiny white edge there. And same thing down here. Leaving a really small white negative area, because the edges of these stars are almost catching the light, so that's why we've done that. Now I'm going to take a little bit of burnt umber, and I'm going to mix that into there, and I'm gonna go back over the face of the first star. Like so. And on the smallest star, I'm just going to add a little bit more water so it's not quite as dark. Get rid of extra paint onto some kitchen towel, and we're just going to brush into the corners of this front star, almost like dry brushing. So just like that, leaving this area clear. Like so. While we've still got this colour, I'm going to pop some onto his foot pads. So just a nice light wash of that colour onto his foot pad there. And same thing on this side, just to get his feet started. It gives a nice base colour for his little feet. And I'm going to do the same thing in his ears. So just in his inner ears there. Right, so we will let that dry. And while that is drying, I need to think about this blanket. Now in the picture, it almost looks like kind of like cotton wool that he's sat on. Sort of a fluffy cotton wool. So I'm just thinking, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some lamp black, just a tiny touch of lamp black, and I'm going to make it really watery. To that, I'm going to add a touch of cadmium yellow hue, and that will give us, hopefully, a nice kind of shadowy colour. Now, I think we can probably have some fun with this this fluff. So what I'm going to do is we're going to do a bit of wet on wet. So we're going to dampen this down. In his little foot, and the scarf, ribbon kind of area. So that's that nice and dampened down, and we're going to take some of this shadow colour and just near the top edge, under where the star is going in, right underneath the star there, some more up, underneath this star, touch down here, under his kind of body there, and over here. Take that right to the top of that. So I'm going to take it right to the top and just let it work its way kind of down there. And it's got quite a big shadow down here, and to the top of that area. Is that an area, scarf area there, and maybe just a few more water there so it spreads a bit better. Okay, I'm going to add a touch more, far too much. Take some of that and start that again. There we go. And while this is still damp, I'm just going to add some of that under where the stars are. So we're kind of using the spreading and the blooms to our advantage for a change. A few just in that corner just to even that up a little bit. And I'm going to leave that at that. Just make sure we've got that right up to there. And now we need to let that dry because that's quite wet. So it will dry a lot lighter, but hopefully it will give us a nice impression that he's sitting on kind of a fluffy looking blanket. Alright guys, that's nice and dry. It's given us quite a nice effect. Got a little tiny gap there. So I'm just going to take a damp brush and soften that in. Just so it's not a harsh white blob there. Okay, now this is going to be quite an in-depth tutorial like I said, so I think I'm going to split it into two possibly, but before I finish today I really want to get one layer on our bear because then when we come back for the next part, we will have the detail to add. So all this lovely detail on his scarf and the rest of his fur, and obviously his eyes and nose and everything. But I really, really do want to get a layer on Mr. Bear. So I think that's what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to do the details on part 2, if that makes sense. So to get on with the first layer of Mr. Bear, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to get some yellow ochre. Now, as this is his first layer, I do want this to be quite watered down. Because we just want it to be really a wash of colour. So yeah, that's great. Because the yellow is going to be his base colour. Now I'm just wondering, I'm looking at his colour now, he is a little bit tan in colour. I'm going to add just a touch of raw umber. Just so that's not quite as bright a yellow. A little bit more. That's better. Yep, that's better. Now, because we put these details on in the first layer, when we do this, we need to be quite quick. What we don't want to do is go over and go over and go over, because what's going to happen is you're going to knock that back too far. You won't see any of it. So this is going to be almost like a sweep, and I'll show you by doing his ear. And I'm just going to sweep the colour over those details. Okay, so just sweep over. I mean, it doesn't matter if you go over that centre part even. Okay, so that's one ear. I'll do the same thing on this ear. Okay, and then his face. Now we want to avoid his eyes and his nose. The rest we can colour. So go around his eyes like that. Taking care to cover all that white area around his nose. Like so. And same thing down his arms. Now he's got a little bit of scarf there, so don't go over that. Go down his arm. Like so. And onto his belly. like so. We'll go down his other arm, taking care not to go onto the scarf. Onto this part of his belly. So this is just a really light wash of colour. And around his little feet. Doesn't matter if you go over the pad. Try not to, but it doesn't matter. It's not too much of a worry because we're going to put some shading in there anyway. Now, just under there is part of his legs, so put that in. Actually, I think I'm going to go over his. I'm going to go over the pads of his feet anyway. And that is our first layer on our bear. And he's got a few more layers and some details to go, obviously. And when we come in tomorrow, I have managed to get a drip on my background. So if that happens, just blot it up as quick as you can with a piece of kitchen roll. When we come back tomorrow, we will continue the layers on the bear. I'm glad he's not naked anymore. And yeah, we'll give him a few more layers, we'll give him some shadows, and we will continue to add the fur details. We will give some more detail to the stars, and last but not least is this beautiful ribbon bow that he's wearing, and obviously his little face. But yeah, I'm going to stop this for now because it was quite in depth, and we will carry on tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed it. Not too sure if I'm going to leave the background plain or if I'm going to put some of my lovely circles in. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Should we put some circles in? Maybe. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.